With this, I guess we don't need to call it to order. It's just a workshop. But here we are. And where did we meet up last time? Is that?
Do you want to start with the health center this time? And then we would go to recreation, right?
Is that Dory?
Yes, I think she's on.
Hey, Dory.
Hi, Gabe. Hi, everybody.
Yes. Where's the health center budget?
It should be way at the back.
Is it a standalone? Okay.
It's a. I'm gonna look at it, you put it on the front, it's 3 pages. If not on the very front, it's in the back.
Oh, it's right on the very front. Okay, it's right in front of me. Great. All right, let's start with the health center. Dory, you want to walk us through your budget?
I think I would rather have Janet do it, honestly. I think she usually does it. And she's really the mastermind, but I'm here for any questions. If that's okay with you, Janet.
Oh, sure. To walk you through it. So the big jumps are going to be under payroll. I did some salary bumps for the providers. It was a great awakening trying to hire someone for Linda Wentworth's position at the rate that we were offering. There were no takers. So, and we had consulted with David Coombs and Edie, talking with us at great length about the health center in general, and they both said, you know, the wages are low, too low. So that was what precipitated that. Brandy is going to work 40 hours. She's been working, I believe, 32 hours. She has been part-time. She's going up to full-time, and this is helpful since Rhonda has left.
Have we replaced Rhonda?
I'm in the process of working out something with Lisa Hill, the lady who's been out here for a couple of years since COVID.
Taking blood.
She takes blood, but she
okay.
also can do the transcription stuff, and she's kind of swapped places with Brandy.
She's nice.
Yeah. So Cindy Satchfield is still there. Peggy Pike still does secretarial stuff for the meetings to keep all the Medicare records straight. I increased the substitute coverage by 8,000. That's basically 80 days at $1,000 a shift. And maybe everybody doesn't work 24-hour shifts, but it's I have to pay people even for a day. That's where I take it out of.
Well, this is $2,000 more than last year. Is
For
that
which thing?
for the entire payroll portion of the budget?
Yeah. I'm going through a lot, but because 43,000
Was for
was
partial
for
coverage,
partial time for Beth.
which is
from
rolled
there.
into full-time.
She's rolled into full-time, so.
And her salary is a bit less due to her level of experience than the salary that Owen and I have.
Yeah, actually, at the back of the budget, I have wages breakdown for the health center and for the town. So, yeah, Beth will be moving up as soon as she's off supervision for the next level. She started at one place. But it will be Owen who's jumped and Dory has jumped. But going on, I mean, fringe, it's FICA, that's predicated by the wages. Health insurance, there was 4% increase in health insurance. Retirement based on, and this year Brandy and Odessa are joining the retirement. Utilities, pretty much the same. Supplies. The big thing under service contracts are for Icon, that's just for one copier over there, which I'm still trying to get a hold of a human at Icon to talk about our 4 different bills. And the other one is for Azalea billing, which Dory may go into a discussion about, but Dory and Owen and Beth have been working on that, along with Brandy and Odessa, and Paige has been a great help in trying to coordinate all this. And that will be about $16,000 a year. It's $1,350 a month, which I believe in your packet there, I have got an invoice so you can just see. And that's just for the billing. We're looking forward to perhaps going on to electronic health records through this same Azalea program. There's different suites you can buy along the way. So I think we were kind of waiting to see how the billing worked.
What benefit does electronic health records offer the town? Is that cutting down on transcription? Is that?
Well,
maybe-
whatever the cost for the electronic health records, if Dory will correct me.
Yeah.
Beth
Yeah.
has said the transcription will be included, so we would say $12,000 from transcriptions.
Are there other benefits associated with digital health records or whatever the terminology
There,
is?
there are, Gabe, there's benefits and disadvantages. I mean, we were really, with Rhonda retiring, and also Rhonda was having increasing difficulty with our old billing system that Roger Heinen built. As most insurance companies are making it more difficult to do anything except electronically submit bills. And I think in order for Rhonda to manage the billing along with everything else she did, she kept it fairly simple. And over the past several years, there have been changes that we have not taken advantage of, just probably the last maybe year and a half to two, of increased reimbursement from Medicare for things like initial wellness exam, annual wellness exam, which can be done in conjunction with a physical. That's an extra $100 per visit. So for two reasons, Rhonda retired, our old system was outdated. We really had to go to an electronic billing system. And we spent considerable time figuring out which would be the most appropriate company to go with, because we have rural health clinic, which the billing system is different than a traditional medical practice. So Azalea was recommended by the Rural Health Clinic Association. So we went with Azalea. We're using their billing programs and their scheduling programs right now, and exploring moving into their electronic health record. What has become apparent is how complicated billing and coding is. And Paige has helped us work with, or actually interview 3 different companies that do consulting to help us, optimize our billing and coding. And Brandy is doing an online course right now. I mean, these are for typical medical practices, the biller and the coder are 2 separate people. They have at least two-year degrees in this. It's very complicated. And so we're coming into this really kind of behind the 8 ball and trying to figure out the most cost-effective, efficient way to transition. I was happy to say I've been concerned that our billing was going to fall off, but Janet, actually, the most recent statement, our billing is actually a little bit more robust than it was last year. And so we're moving in that direction. Advantages of electronic health record. Beth will tell you, Beth, our new nurse practitioner, will tell you that was one of the major reasons that she took the job, is with the promise that we'd get electronic health record. If you're going to recruit younger providers, they just find paper charts burdensome and not user-friendly. Owen and I tend to be older school. We like the paper charts, but it's becoming more difficult to survive in that world, because getting information from Maine Health, which is where most of our patients go for diagnostics and consults, everything has to come in by the fax. And so ideally, an electronic health record would be able to communicate with Epic, and that communication of patient records would be easier. It does have a dictation component, which so for those of us that are older, that are not the younger generation that type without any effort, that's appealing. I think it's going to be a major transition. We're in the process of weighing the charges and how we're the charges for the electronic health record and moving in that direction. We won't be able to do it before summer, but we're hoping by refining our skills and knowledge. Brandy has done an excellent job. She's very bright and she's learning very quickly. That our billing will increase. Our receipts are really very, very low for compared to many other practices. So we also need to look at our billing structure and maybe increase those prices that for an office visit and procedures that have not been increased since 2015, being very mindful that our mission is to provide medical care to everybody on the island, regardless of their financial status, being underinsured or lacking insurance. So it's on our short list, and we've already started to talk about revamping our sliding scale fee. So more people will utilize that. And so our charges, like right now for an established patient office visit, is $50. I just had a patient in the office today who said that they have a primary care provider that was going to do a telehealth visit for them for $300 today. You know, I saw her in the office for 35 minutes for $50, which is great because right now she's not insured. But if we could have that person sign up for sliding scale and capture, you know, for her, she would probably pay less than $50 on the sliding scale, but the people that are insured, we'd get a higher reimbursement level. I don't know if that makes sense, if that's sort of complicated. But
That also.
okay.
Super explaining that.
Okay, and the other thing the other components that we need to move into within the next year are electronic prescribing of controlled substances, which we've had a waiver from the state because of our challenges being a rural health clinic. Azalea offers that. So we're in the process of, you know, trying to figure out what we need, what's the best use of our funds, what consultants can help us, or do we just ask Azalea to be our consultant? It's complicated. Paige has been very helpful, but we're making forward progress and all working together on it.
Question, Shay.
Just a quick clarifying question. The consultants and the lines and the service contracts, I'm assuming the service contract is something that is kind of an annual expense year after year in order to go to that system. Is the consultants the same thing? Is that an annual expense or is that kind of a migration expense?
No, that's sort of an onboarding when we do. Right now, we do need some assistance with the billing and coding to make sure that we're optimizing our revenue cycle. And our hope is that we'll do that more on an hourly consultant basis. And Brandy has learned a lot. And like I said, she's doing an online course right now. So it's hard to say how much we're going to need. But no, it should not be a recurring annual fee.
Thanks.
Were you looking on page 2 under consultants?
Yeah.
We have 20, yeah. And
And then can I just ask another question? It looks, I mean, between these two pages, I mean, I'm sort of seeing closer to like $50,000 or to $60,000 in increases for these lines, but the health center total is more like $125,000 increase.
are you looking on page 3?
I'm looking
Very
at
good where
page 2.
it's broken down. The new budget minus anticipated revenues.
Is the anticipated revenue the piece that's the 130 in anticipated revenue that's offsetting the budget?
Okay.
But going forward, it's
That was-
150,000.
20.
Oh, yeah, on the left-hand side is what we're going into. So I'm going back, pushing the anticipated revenue back up to 150. It's been 130 the last couple of years. And we're going to have endowment money of $57,240. And if you choose, you may not choose to use the undesignated fund balance. The auditor felt it's 101,000, I believe, and I first wanted to take 50, but she recommended only 30 to leave that 77 in there, but that's your choice. So if you subtract all those revenues from that new budget, that's where the subsidy of 785,000 comes in. Does that answer your question?
No, I think, my understanding of, on page 2, line 58, the 1,022,000 should just be a subtotal of the expenses.
All the subtotals, correct.
Isn't that right?
And maybe I'm doing bad math on the fly. It just seems like a bigger jump than I'm seeing in each of the. I've been known to do bad math on the fly.
I can get my calculator.
Got it. No, that's,
I get the same thing that
I
Shay
don't-
does, that it's 156,000 difference between last year's budget and this year's request.
yeah, and the numbers you maybe my,
Are we just oversighting this nickels and dimes on that?
5,000 here, 15 there.
Well, 20,000 revenue too.
But you're just talking
700.
expenses.
I'm just talking
Versus-
expenses, yeah.
I add and I get that total, the total is on the page.
Yeah, I do too. Maybe it's a,
Is there anything new, completely new? I'm just looking to see. An increase of 15,000 for the consultants, that's 15. Something big. 5 for travel and training.
that's all right.
But yeah, no, I see what you mean. But I thought you meant on the other end, and I was just saying,
Yeah, no,
that doesn't make it good that it's up that much. But it's coming, it's the bottom line.
So I think, is this the
That's-
line,
that's
this
the
has been
wrong,
adjusted?
that's the wrong line. Yeah,
Yes,
that
that's,
number's
that's
wrong.
what's different.
Which one?
The total from year 23 is not the total of the columns like the request is, that has been offset.
That has been offset?
Yeah.
To me, that's 866,000.
Yeah, that should actually be like 973.
Okay,
I was just trying to compare like how much was,
Oh, yeah,
how much
yeah,
it was
yeah,
Uh-huh.
going up
yeah.
and that's,
Yeah, it's a hard comparison when the numbers at the bottom are not calculated the same way.
Right.
yeah.
So we have to change that for the future, and I think it would be helpful just to have these at the bottom, be the totals, just like we're looking at for year 24, so that we can compare across the board. Understanding that things are gonna be different in terms of health center endowment, in terms of anticipated revenue and undesignated funds that are all used to essentially offset and reduce the annual subsidy provided by the town, but just for looking at a straight comparison and to be able to understand from year to year what's changing, it's good for those things to be calculated the exact same way. So that's a
Okay,
good catch.
sorry.
Sherry. No, thank you for looking at that.
No, thank you. I mean, I generally add up, and I guess I didn't focus on the FY24. I use my calculator also. I don't always trust my spreadsheet, but I do check my formula.
Okay, so we have finished page 1. We haven't talked about page 2 really in detail. We're looking at roughly the same for supplies, lab expenses. Flu shots, transcriptions are all the same. Perhaps in the future, transcription will go away or be reduced, it sounds like, that's to be
Mhm.
determined. Travel and training are more, $5,000 more. Is this with Beth doing more training because she's new? Is that where this is? Or is this not? Is this?
I think Dory, I didn't want to interrupt her, but I think they didn't do a lot of training last year.
COVID
Did go
stuff.
off, yeah, and their contracts each say they have $3,000 each for travel. And training,
Mhm.
classes.
How often do you have to recertify?
It depends on which certification you're talking about. For our national certification, it's every 5 years. But for ACLS, it's 2 years. ATLS is 4 years. Pediatric ACLS is 2 years. Like our regular nursing licenses are every 2 years.
Thank you.
HHW collection, is this?
Health, waste, yeah, medical waste.
We haven't spent any this year. We spent $25.
I'm trying to get rid of the bags upstairs in the attic right now. We got 3 or 4 boxes of those red
So,
bags.
so there's stuff that we need to get rid of that hasn't been paid for.
That's correct. So hopefully by June 30, if I can.
Sounds good. Dues, 1,500, consultants, we've talked about that, Joe. Malpractice liability insurance, I assume that's just what's coming from the insurance carrier.
Mhm.
Supervising doctors are the same, contingency is the same. Is it for the health center budget? Any questions for Janet or Dory?
Just one other question, is that the endowment draw on page 3? I mean, has the endowment performance been increasing enough? That's a real number?
Yeah, they sent me a letter and I'm not sure if I put it in your packet, but I usually give you their quarterly statement, but it shows what would be available to draw from. You don't have to draw all that. But that's your choice.
How close do we come in the revenues? Like 130 this year.
We should be looking at that sometime in the budget.
But that will be coming up in the revenue section, but right now,
Okay.
revenues are to date through March 10th, 127, almost 128,000, which is really good. We still have 3 months to
Yeah, so
go.
we're gonna exceed our projection.
Yeah.
And Gabe, I am really hopeful that next year that we're going to be much better.
Great. I know one of the things that we've talked about, at least last year and into this year, is looking at revenue streams for the town. Not specifically about the health center, but about other things in terms of how much the town is charging for stuff like the demo bins. And I know Melissa spent some time looking at that, so that's an ongoing conversation. Depending on the revenue stream.
Yeah, we need to, that and planning board.
Yeah, I mean, the revenue certainly helps, but having the difference with the subsidy request is being so small is pretty nice to see.
I mean, it's nice to be heading towards a smaller increase, and perhaps as we generate more revenue from the health center, that we may at some point not have increases in the health center budget just by offsetting some of the costs from various streams, so that would be good. Any other
Yep.
questions? Any other questions before we move on, or Dory, is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
I guess I just want to make sure, so flu shots, just over the last few years have become sort of standard for the town to pay for. We do include them on the cost report, and this past year, due to all of the COVID and flu vaccines the cost report, sort of the end of the year sort of bonus was higher. And that will offset the flu shots. So it's time to order flu shots for next year. Last year we ordered 450 and we used about 400 doses. So this year it's possible I can get some from the state. So I'm debating whether I get 350, hope to get some from the state, because we didn't use all last year's, and so that money got wasted. I'm not quite sure what to do with that. I mean, it's expensive, but our goal is to reduce any barriers to anybody not getting a flu shot. So,
Seems good. All right, well, hard to know where to go with the flu shots from year to year, I'm sure, so
okay,
good luck with that. Good luck with that.
okay.
But I'll make that correction to the expense and for the health center.
Yeah, I'm hoping that also through understanding the billing and optimizing revenue, that the cost report is also going to reflect more end of year sort of bonus money.
Yeah, and it seems like the health center is heading in a good direction in terms of modernizing with new software and billing and getting that stuff ready in anticipation of having a new building, hopefully in
Yeah.
the not too distant future. So we're ready to set that up in a way that's going to work with the next generation of technology.
Yes.
Anything else before we move on from the health center budget? Hearing none, moving on. Thank you, Dory.
Thanks, Dory.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Where are we right now? Where?
I think recreation.
Creation, which is page,
Um,
we stayed a little bit later last time.
Waste.
There's this. Waste removal. Waste removal. Here we are, recreation, library. Melissa here? Melissa, you up there on Zoom?
It's no longer Melissa, it's Rob McHugh, and I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Great.
No, this is for the library.
You're here for the library, Rob?
No. Okay, my mistake.
That's okay. The library, well, Melissa's not here, but we'll walk through it anyway.
am I here?
It looks like the salaries have a cost of living adjustment. The CMP bill is, the request is lower. Is that because of the change in heat? Or
Well, it should
efficiency?
be better, but no, it's due to the solar panels and the
Great.
credits that we get.
That's good. Telephone is a little bit more, postage is more.
Yeah, and I know Melissa, they do a lot of books from the state borrowing, and then the library does the postage back for them, so she's.
I think they were also wanting to do more outreach to the community with the mailers,
Oh,
as more people are pulling away from social media, making sure that it's getting in with what they're doing, like their schedule with the town.
That is up marginally, a couple $100, but overall that section of the budget is down. Just because of the savings for power, which is nice, especially given the increased CMP rates. Computer consultants is couple $100, supplies are a little bit more. The elevator contract is going up. And I assume that's the service contract.
Correct.
People for that.
Correct, and if we have any issues,
Dues Maine Library Association, this represents a roughly $3,000 increase from last year, which appears to me to be primarily in the cost of living for
no,
the folks who work there. $400 extra in some of the supply lines and maintenance lines, $700 less in the sort of utility postage telephone line. Any questions, conversation? Museum, recreation, is there anybody here on the Zoom call who wants to talk about the museum?
Yep. I'm here if you need it, if you have any questions. We're
Who is that?
increased-
Dave,
that's
Oh, hey, Dave, sorry.
that's Dave Petzel. So I'm the chair of the Lighthouse Committee and Museum Committee. So we're increasing the number of hours for the hostess this year. We're also increasing the amount of telephone because we're going to potentially put in a Seacoast security monitoring system. The website, we're requesting $115 to maintain the website. Plus, we need some more supplies to maintain equipment repairs And so those values have gone up quite a bit because the lighthouse has been in disrepair for so many years. And the Island Fellow is no increase over last year's budget. Are there any questions?
I think so. We initially had brought up the Seacoast Security. That came up not too long ago when we kicked it back to this.
Security.
The Seacoast Security.
Yeah.
There was an initial cost as well as, didn't we look at that last week about the initial
Yes.
cost?
Yes, and you said, you know, to put that on hold, because that came up under Public Works, maintenance of buildings. I didn't put it in their budget, I put it in,
Why would it not be in the,
it's a one-time. But I mean, it could come over here, but
and how much was that initial cost
That-
for the Seacoast Security?
I want to say.
The initial bid was $7,500.
75.
That includes the installation, right?
That includes the installation for fire, flood, security, theft.
$7,065, then there were going to be that $600 a month
A
on their
year.
phone, so that's,
$50 a month.
excuse me, for the year.
Yeah.
600. That's why the
Yeah.
phone was two.
I'm not sure that I support spending the money on security for the Lighthouse Museum. I mean, I think we want to start maintaining it, and we've already done some exterior maintenance, and we're working on other things, which I think is a good thing, but I don't know that I see the benefit of $7,500 and an ongoing obligation to pay security monitoring, which I'm sure will be progressively going up. I mean, for a brick building, my own personal preference would be not to fund that, but I'll throw it out to the board for other thoughts.
Dave, do you have a dollar value on the museum pieces?
Yeah, it's about $50,000. We had it appraised this spring, $50,000. The building is it's a wooden building where the museum is.
Right.
50,000. Oh, I thought, it was around, because I increase the main municipal, risk pool insurance. I thought it was up to 35,000.
No, you increased it to $50,000 because it was so low.
Well,
I have
we
a
went by
question.
the appraiser on the value of things
Right.
inside the museum,
Yeah.
yeah.
Has there been any vandalism or break-in at the lighthouse or anything?
Not that we're aware of, but the reason we want the security is because there seems to be a lot of break-ins in other houses on the island. That's our major concern.
Okay,
At least at this point, there is a camera right on the lighthouse that someone, it's not the equivalent of a security system, but there is a camera that's right there that is taking pictures all the time, so that is at least some sort of deterrent.
Does it record?
are you talking about the 2 break-ins last year?
Yeah, in private homes.
Right. I think there were 2. Were there more than that?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
It doesn't record video, it records pictures. I can't remember what the look back is. It saves them for like a week or something and it overwrites them. It doesn't save forever.
I tend to agree on the security system.
In what way?
Melissa, what are your thoughts on?
Is Seacoast the only option? There's a couple different, like the Waze cameras and different things like that now that could knock it down, especially if, and the Energy Committee, Jessica abandoned me.
So they could certainly set up a camera. They have a Wi-Fi connection right there.
Right, and there's different things. I'm wondering if there's not a route that doesn't require the really heavy initial startup for it. And that's something I could get behind with, and there's different things that have other cameras that have the moisture detection, different things like that. Like if the temperature drops too low, all of that. Have you looked into anything like that, Dave?
No, but we will. You can take that off the table. The
I-
75.
Like,
You can
I'm not opposed to having something in the lighthouse in order to help with ease,
Sure.
but I just don't know that we can swing the 7,600 for it this year. You know, I think that a more personalized and smaller scale approach would be appropriate.
Well, I mean, at least there's high-speed internet in there right now, so
Right.
to the extent that those sensors exist
Yeah.
out there in the world, they could be pretty inexpensive to just plug in and have again, it's not the same as having someone actively monitoring it for you, but it's, I think, a reasonable step in the right direction.
And I think the
Okay.
estimate was so high because the building, the walls, everything has to be run on the outside. It was gonna be more expensive to install because it was an old, not heated in the winter, strictly limited to hardwired services. Lots of labor hired due to that fact. And it's a community space, so you have to follow guidelines, exit areas, red pole boxes, horns, strobe lights, hardwired. But that's when I called the guy and said, why is this so expensive?
Gotcha.
Alright, so right now, I guess we'll take it off the table and then we can address other thoughts on that in the future as they come.
Dave, I'd be happy to meet with you about options that I know of, and then
Yep.
if it's a couple $100 to get the cameras going.
Yeah.
Which actually would even be better for the lighthouse, because the ones that I'm aware of are Wi-Fi plug and play.
Yeah.
You're not drilling in anything, you're not damaging any kind of walls, you're not having to run anything outside. And then that could be one of the hostess's responsibilities to keep that little camera charged, but it holds for like 2 weeks. And so,
Thank you very much for your help. I appreciate it.
I
It's off
think for
the table.
about,
It's off the
about-
table. Thank you.
for about $40, you can get a little camera, and there is a subscription associated with it, but it's not very expensive, and it'll record, it'll alert you, and that's like the low end. You can go up to, if you went up to like $500, you get a pretty nice thing with a bunch of alerts.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions about the museum before we move on?
Let me strike that to $600.
So moving on, harbor facilities. Ken is here. I see Dylan, who is on the Zoom call. Is there anybody else who is here for harbor specifically? Not that we need anyone else. I will turn it over to either Dylan or Ken, if whoever wants to walk us through your budget.
Oh, he's on.
Yep.
Okay. I told him I'd go ahead and do this.
Okay.
We reduced our budget by roughly 28%. This year, we were able to accomplish a significant number of improvements, both at Grindle Point and Seal Harbor. We're also, right now, we're trying to, I think everything that we have in the way of harbor facilities is in good shape, except one item. We do have to do something with the walkway down to the dock at Seal Harbor, the wooden part of it. We do have to do something with that another year.
Is the structure underneath okay?
But
Is the structure underneath okay?
yeah. Right, we did some work before when we did that.
Replace the legs, right? We replaced the legs not a couple of years ago, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so we're in good shape, and that's why we were able to reduce it. We budgeted quite a bit of money to do the work that needed to be done. And apparently that's been done. So we hope we're able to add to your fund balance.
Great, thank you, Ken.
I should mention a couple of things. We're attempting to develop a sort of a subcommittee between the Harbor Committee and the Shellfish Committee. And the purpose of that is to review all applications for aquaculture on the island. The island and the surrounding islands nearby. To review that, and the purpose is to reduce unnecessary conflict if possible. Because we're gonna have more and more people asking to have aquaculture farms. They already started. And we think by meeting with the people that want to present, they're dealing their application with the Department of Marine Resources. We can sort of be an intermediary and identify if there are some issues that we know of as local people. So it's an attempt to have input from the island on a system that's been set up for the state to do.
So is this, if my understanding is right, this is going to be a joint committee with, is this gonna be with other communities or just Islesboro and the Shellfish Committee or other communities surrounding in this area?
There's nobody else that are doing this.
Okay, so I thought I understood that maybe you were working with neighboring communities to,
So we'd have like a couple of members from the Shellfish Committee, a couple from the Harbor Committee. And people that want to make application, they could review it with us and identify like navigation. The only thing that the island can do is intervene on navigation under the present system. The harbor master is the only person that is designated by law that will review that, but we already have had one case where somebody is concerned about the mooring. And that probably that could have been, we wouldn't have that confrontation until if we had dealt with that earlier. So the idea is a bit more work, but will benefit the island.
great, that sounds good. Any questions for Ken or Dylan, who's also here? Or Dylan, is there anything you want to add?
Ken, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ken, how long have you were you chair of the Harbor Committee?
Too long. I don't know. Long time.
Well, I didn't hear what you said, but I just wanted to thank you for your service and you've done a good job as long as I've been attending meetings. So I'll do my best to keep it up. But thanks a lot, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
We're doing a great job.
And thanks to Dylan for stepping up and taking over. this
Stepping
responsibility.
up.
Yes, yes. Dylan.
Nobody else here.
You already got sworn at, so you're doing all right.
That means you're headed in the right direction, I believe.
By our term.
Any other questions for the harbor committee or harbor facilities budget, which is down $20,000 this year? Hearing none. Thank you both very much for being here. Next on the agenda, recreation shellfish conservation. It's $1,000 again. It sounds like perhaps from what Ken said that there will be, I'm not sure if there'll be money spent on that committee or when the committee will be formed. It looks like they've spent almost $1,000 already this year. Anybody here from the shellfish committee? There are none. Anybody on the select board know anything about the shellfish committee's budget or what the plans are for the upcoming year? No.
John Kerr just asked me to keep it the same. And I know he's out of town, but you know.
Okay, well, I'm inclined to leave that the way it is. Recreation. Rob, I think this is your time.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So the committee and I have looked it over, and the biggest increase is with a kindergarten through third grade swim program that will increase from 1,000 to just shy of $5,700. And this is a result of swim lessons and transportation primarily. So that really is the biggest increase in the proposed budget for next year. And with the other itemized, the list of itemized outlays is a 4% increase just for cost of living. And I see that Kizzy is here, which is great. And if Kizzy, if you need to add anything to what I'm saying, please feel free.
Can I ask a question? What
Yes.
is this? What is the summer adventure camp consultant?
Those are counselors.
So year to date on that is 8,000. Is that because are we gonna have more before? No, we're not gonna have
They'll
any.
start probably in June. I mean, they'll start spending some. I'm looking at laws.
It looks like historically, in 2022, we spent 10,000. In 2023, we spent 8 so far, and it sounds like the potential for a little bit more. So perhaps that's gonna be more in the neighborhood of 10,000 again. And the ask was 24 last year and 25 this year. I'm just wondering if there's is there something else that's gonna come out of this line? Because we didn't spend, we spent $15,000 less or 14,000 less last year. And it looks like we might be on track for the same this year.
Yeah, because I don't, what do you think, Rob? Are you, and do you know where you're going to be this summer? Because I think if you're at the community center this year, you're going to have to pay $500 a week. Did you have that planned in this budget?
That is not included in this budget because I just got word of that. I believe it was the 3rd of March from Sarah Babich that as a result of ICS not being available for the adventure camp because of construction, the only other location that we have right now that's been offered to us that can meet our needs is the ICC. And Sarah has put the ask out there of $500 per week, and that is not included in this proposal here because I did get that information after the proposal was due.
How many weeks is the summer adventure camp scheduled for?
8 weeks.
So $4,000 worth of potential like rental space essentially.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yep.
Is the travel and bus for Island and off on the Quicksilver, is that for the swim program? Or is the 5,700 all inclusive for travel and swim?
That is all inclusive. I'm looking at it here.
Cause I noticed that on the past 2 years, you guys haven't even broke $1,000 on the travel yet. And so that might be your $4,000 for.
Yeah, I nearly, that would fill the void there. I agree.
Unless you guys have a lot of big plans to be off island a lot this year.
Well, a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from families this past summer is that they would prefer to do more off-island trips. We didn't do any this past summer, and prior to that, with COVID, we didn't do any. When I was camp director 4 years ago, we did one a week, and that is the plan for this summer, to do one off-island trip per week with the campers.
Rob, what are your thoughts about the camp counselors line, which is now stands at 25,000 and in the last couple of years has only been spent around 10? Are we expecting more camp counselors this year? Did we not, we have some missing last year? Is there, just wondering what the,
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, from 22 to 23. I don't know, let's see here, 24. This past summer, we had, every single day, we had 3 camp counselors, one being the camp director, one being a lead counselor, one being a counselor, and we had a rotating couple that would do two days on and 3 days off and alternate. So I'm looking at that here. The 23 budget was 24,340 was spent on camp counselors. Is that what you're asking?
oh, wait, so I'm asking, yeah, the camp counselor line, it looks like actual from 2021 was $2,000, actual from 2022 was 10 and change. The budgeted request in 2023 was 24 and change, but we've only spent 8,000 so far. And there is some of that's going to be coming out of the budget this year, when the camp starts before the changeover of the fiscal year. But now we have 25 scheduled, the ask in 24, but historically we haven't really spent more than 10 out of that line.
Can I,
Shay, go ahead, please.
So the way that I'm looking at it, I think where it has been budgeted or where it's hit has been different particularly in 21 and 22, because the summer rec director and assistants and the salary lines have been
Oh, it's broken up.
differently. I think that's what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Oh, so
But-
those are actual there, but there's no actual in 2023 there. Yeah, so 2023, it looks like all that was spent $16,000 total. It seems low.
But if they didn't do any off-island travel, that could be
Yeah, okay.
the difference, I would guess.
And perhaps this will be enough room in the budget without making a change to cover the space rental.
I think that is the case. I think funds that were allocated that were not spent can be reallocated for the rental space that I see at the community center.
So, Rob, I will say that in year 2023, you have a lot more money in your budget. So to the extent that you are trying to make sure you can cover that cost, you could perhaps pay for the rental space at the community center out of the unspent money from 2023 before you even get into your 2024 budget.
I think that we can, yes.
Yeah, it looks like there's, I mean, almost
It's more than
30,000,
half,
yeah, almost $30,000 of unspent funds from 2023, so. There's room in there to make that payment as long as it happens before the start of the next fiscal year, so.
Can I ask
Yes.
a different question? So I know in summer 2022, there was not a lifeguard at Big Tree. It looks like there is budgeting for one this year. Again, is that something that is something the rec committee is still thinking about trying to implement, or?
Well, this past year, we were fortunate enough to have 2 counselors, actually one, the camp director and one of the counselors, to have lifeguard certification. So we didn't need an additional person. But I think that was budgeted the previous year with the understanding or the possibility that we would need an additional person who had lifeguard certification. But like I said, this past year, we were fortunate to have the camp director who is not coming back and one of the counselors who had lifeguard certification. So we didn't have to hire an additional person for that service.
Okay, so that's envisioned as part of the adventure camp requirements, not as kind of a separate swim program at Big Tree Beach.
Right, that the swim program is would be at the YMCA, K through 3. That's a separate issue. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Nope, that's helpful. Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay.
I would be in favor for, since the doc didn't go through and it hasn't, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, that they haven't done anything else with it other than put the buoy or the float out. I almost, because they had such a hard time trying to find someone that would come out to do, because I think that was for 4 hours, 4 days a week, or 4 hours, 5 days a week.
Yeah,
Last year was
yeah.
the 3,200. I would almost vote to scrap that out of it for 2024. If they're not gonna have somebody that's out there separate from adventure camp.
I think Rob was just saying that they didn't use it last year because they had counselors who were lifeguards certified on staff,
But initially, when it had came through with Melissa Jagger, she wanted somebody else that wasn't associated with adventure camp. It wasn't just to watch the little people swim, it was to watch the middle schoolers swim to help cover with liability.
Yeah, I think was it originally higher than that 32?
Yeah, and then we cut it down
Cut it
to
down, something
like
like,
peak hours or something like that to see, and then we cut it in half again when like the rest of the doc thing wasn't going through. But I don't know if they've done anything further with it.
So
Probably.
I don't know what the plan was in the previous year, Melissa, that you're referencing with regard to Melissa Jagger and having a lifeguard. My understanding was that item, that budget item right there was put in place for the possibility of needing to hire an additional person who could be a lifeguard for campers.
Okay,
Like I said, having the 2 counselors that had certification that didn't necessitate that budget item.
I would think that you would have enough, even if we took out that $3,228 in that consultant line to cover whatever may come up for a lifeguard.
you know, they didn't go off on it all last year. I don't know, I'd be reluctant to strike that at this point and see how another year goes and make sure that the adventure camp and the kids camp is fully funded. But. thoughts
Yeah, I
from
do
others?
think that things are going to change a little bit in terms of what the money is that will be required, because we are doing this coming summer 1 off-island trip a week, and then I don't know what we're going to have. We haven't fully staffed the camp yet. We're still doing that. And if we have to get somebody who is a lifeguard who is not already a camp counselor, that's going to be an additional budget item there. So I tend to agree with not striking the 3,200. Not only that, but the $500 a week for the ICC rental fee. There are just a few unknowns. That's the problem right now with regard to hiring.
Well, we can pay that too, or 4,000, like you said, at the end of June. out of
Yeah,
this
that's
budget,
That
current
would be
budget.
a thought in June before the
Yeah.
fiscal year turns over. If that turns into a reality of rental space, we ought to be
Yes,
paying.
and if you get all your counselors, correct? I mean, I guess we'd have to make sure it was a go. Yeah, before I pay that money.
can you pay it with a contingency clause?
Probably.
Because our last day of school is not even until, what, June 14th now? When is camp supposed to start, Rob?
Let me look at the date here.
The 23rd, I think it may be the 23rd.
That doesn't sound right, but let me just look here.
It's a Friday.
Yeah, June 23rd is a Friday.
It's not 23rd.
June, so it would be. Whoops, that's July, sorry. Come on. 26th.
Last week.
Okay.
And it goes to mid-August, basically.
It goes to, let's see, August, it would be the last week. Would be. The last day would be the 18th of August.
Well, more thoughts on this. I think the only thing we've been talking about potentially changing is the lifeguard. Melissa says it's okay with keeping it. I think that means we're gonna keep it and move on. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns before we continue?
Nope.
All right, thank you, Rob.
Thank you, guys.
It's after 6 o'clock now. We probably ought to take 5 and then start our regularly scheduled select board meeting. We cover what we hoped. We didn't cover provider agencies. Provider agencies are short. Do we want to just do that and hammer it out? Provider agencies, here we go.
I see no big change.
There's not a big change. I believe, if Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, these provider agencies do make a request based on the service that has been provided to Islesboro residents. Is that right?
That's correct, and you've got a sheet there that shows how many people that they did serve. And the only difference, there's 2 new ones this year from Waldo County Food Pantry for $250, and Waldo County Bounty for food is $200.
There's roughly a $1,400 increase overall for this. It looks like a lot of that is Waldo Community Action Partners. What do they do? Is that the transportation?
It's part of all of it. My understanding, they do transportation, mental health care, if somebody's needing, help locating services.
Okay.
Yeah, they help you. Thank you. And I think they kind of work in conjunction with our outreach worker.
Okay.
Housing, non-emergency medical, transportation, home energy assistance.
New Hope for Women, up $330. That's a good organization. American Red Cross, the same. Spectrum Generation Life Flight is up a little bit. YMCA would not make a request.
Which is odd.
Waldo, then the big $450 is Waldo County Bounty and the pet food pantry. Any thoughts on that?
I think you can go first. Oh, I think that the rec swim thing
Mhm.
is gonna be through Waldo YMCA.
Yeah.
Do we want to go ahead and just put the $50 in there in case they had just a filing mishap? That way it doesn't shortchange Adventure Camp. Like if we have to be a member in order to send our kids over there, I just don't want them to have a snafu with it when it's something that we normally do every year.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's allowed or not, but I'd rather budget for it than not.
It's certainly allowed.
Right.
I don't
It seems like there's money, it would be money available in the rec budget for $50 too.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, it's like a do. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, But I will
Okay.
contact them
Yeah,
to,
I just don't want them to get snafu.
right. I think it would be somewhat unusual to make a payment without an act.
Right.
Perhaps more. I mean, there is money in the rec budget if it came to that, but perhaps it's worth reaching out to them on the front end and just
I'll check with Peter
understanding if there's
tomorrow.
been an administrative oversight or something at the Waldo. I mean, $50 is not a huge amount of money,
Right.
but
They've had a couple big changes,
yeah,
and so I think they have new people in their front office.
Oh.
we don't
They're
want
super
to,
sweet though.
yeah, we don't want to alienate them for sure.
Right.
So if you want to look into that, James,
I will.
to make sure that they're not dropping the ball. We're picking up the ball for.
Yeah, but I think we can pay it out of rec. That amount. So-
Outreach worker is new in 19.
Yeah, that's just information I left in there. And this is basically Jen McFarland helping.
I believe that has been a successful program so far, is my understanding. So.
Yeah.
I support that. Any thoughts or comments, questions about that or about provider agencies before we call it a day with the budget? Budget is called a day. Let's take 5 and then get ready for select board.